Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. You probably have wondered what happened to me. I dropped out there for a little bit, and there was a sort of confluence of factors that sort of happened to make that happen. So to my new subscribers, welcome. And if you've wondered what kind of channel you've subscribed to that doesn't have any new videos coming out, I'm getting back into the swing of things here. So basically, to keep a long story relatively short, I was struggling quite a bit with the lighting for the cliff project that's coming up, that's ongoing, that I feel like I haven't really started yet. And it was tremendously frustrating, and I really got a little bit discouraged, to be honest with you. And I have a YouTube viewer who was helping me. And before I thank him, I just want to thank everybody else who submitted offerings to help with the lighting and tips and suggestions. And it was overwhelming, both figuratively and literally. I was swamped with responses, and it really made me feel good about the community, that we're all a part of, and that everybody's willing to, try to help out each other. So thank you to everybody who submitted, offers of help. But one gentleman in particular, Sam, really was willing to sit down with me, and I could shoot code back and forth with him. And after I had sent him code about 3 times, 4 times, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? It's still not working. He basically said, here, try this, and then sent me a whole new code that had all sorts of different effects built into it. And I was able to take that and then scaffold the effects that I wanted and tweak it in a way that I understood, and have gotten to a point now where I feel like I can finally move forward. So thank you so much, Sam. It really meant a lot to me, and it was, you went above and beyond to help me, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate it. But that wasn't the only thing occupying me for the last couple weeks. I also hosted a warhammer party for the club that I'm a member of. That's the Unplugged Gamers. You can go to the Unplugged Gamers website, and you can see, I don't know what our club is about, but we through the GT recently. I was talking about that a little ways back. But anyway, I was going to have people come over to the house and play, and if I'm going to have people come to my house to play, I wanted them to play on the best tables I've ever made. So I got totally obsessed with designing a whole slew of new pieces to improve the tables. New basing for trees, new hills that are castable, graveyard, jungle terrain. It's a whole, I got locked in. I got real tunnel vision on it. And the only thing that reassured me that I wasn't going totally crazy with this was that these are things that I'm going to be able to take and put into the store for purchases in the future, as well as the entire tables that I built for that. They'll all be packaged up as a one kind of package deal, and that will go into the store as well in the clearance section. So there'll be an offering, for everybody's budget. If you can afford a full table, it'll be there for you by one click. I sound like GW, but anyway, and if you're interested in, unfinished pieces, there's going to be some of those coming out as well. So keep your eye on the channel for that. This is what happens to me. I get, sometimes I get obsessed. If you've been watching my videos, you know that sometimes I obsess on the little details. Why is that not quite right? And this time it was getting obsessed with the really big picture, and that kind of took me away. And I also, once Sam sent me the new code for the last probably 20 hours, not today, I mean over, several days, I have been just obsessed with getting that code to work. So I just needed to get over that hump, and I think I'm over it. So what I'd like to do today is take you through what the lighting effects are, so I can show the customer as well, give you a little sense of what I intend to use them for, and also give you an update on the idea for lighting the lava. I did some work with some plastics, and trying to cast with them, and I can show you what those results are as well. So, it's been a while since I shot a video, and it's hot. Man, is it hot here. The humidity has been brutal, but I will not let that stop me. As they say, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. That's corny, but anyway, that's my mantra lately. So let's take a look at the lights and see what I've been up to. All right, so basically what I have here is... Oh, wait. Before I even describe what's going on here, I know there are people out there who know how to solder circuits, electrical engineers. I'm going to get a bunch of flack for this kind of janky, electrical tape setup. Look, I don't have any shrink tubing, so what I've done, and I'm not going to order any shrink tubing because I don't want to have any more delays with moving forward with this. So I've just kind of, done a quick assembly, taped up most of the areas that are going to cause shorts while I'm playing with it. When it's done, I'll tape everything down nice and tight, make it look a little bit cleaner, but it's all going to be hidden anyway. The idea being that it, as long as it is, won't be accessible for manhandling, so it should be fine. So please, And don't look at my solder joints. I'm new to soldering, but I was able to solder, all the resistors in without too much difficulty, and was able pretty much to, do all the joining that I needed to do, and I felt like that came out pretty well. So, for a newbie, I felt like that went all right. It takes a little time, though, but it's not, terribly arduous. So having said that, what are we looking at? Basically, this is an Arduino programmable board. I got this from adafruit.com. It's spelled just like it sounds. And this allows you to program it in basically a proxy of C++, which was new to me, which is part of the problem I've been having. And by programming it, then there are output pins that will send different signals, and then I'm using a breadboard here to, basically do the connections on so I can wire it quick and easy and test out different things. I put a couple switches in here for the two different effects, the two different sets of lights basically that will be in the project, and then it's hooked up to a 9-volt battery pack. Now I finally decided I need to start playing with the 9-volt battery pack, because after looking at Ohm's law and making sure that I understood how to calculate the needed resistors, down here for the lights to try to maximize their brightness, I realized that the board normally, when it's plugged into a USB, is running on 5 volts, but since it's going to be running on 9 volts when it gets to the customer, I better start playing with that and doing the math on that. So I have done that. The resistors I've selected are not optimized perfectly because I don't have the right levels of resistors, so I had to put a couple together, and so but it's close. It's close, and I think it's going to produce a very nice effect. So what I keep talking about effects. What effects are there? So there's basically going to be 2 sets of lights, and this set of lights will be in the ancient entrance. So that's got the entrance going into the cliff. Then there's going to be a T section, and the idea is to have the lights out of sight in the T section lit to cast light into the interior of it and sort of, come out of the entrance visually. So that way I don't have to worry about people seeing the bulbs, which are going to be, pretty hard to hide and make them look natural to scale. So I basically have been playing around with 3 different effects, but I feel confident now I could add more. But the first effect was one of the most, persnickety at first. Well, I shouldn't say that, actually. This was not the hardest effect. But what I wanted to do is create a flicker fire effect to make it look like torchlight flickering. So this gives you a little sense of what that looks like. And looking at a candle, a LED candle that has just an orange flicker bulb in it, obviously the color was quite orange, and what I noticed is it had a random length of lighting and pausing. So what I've done actually is I created several intensities in the code for the bulbs, and then I've created a randomizer to randomly choose the color to select, so there's like 7 colors in there, and then also randomly choose the duration that the colors stay on. So it gives you a pretty random effect, and I think that looks pretty natural. I might tweak with it just a little bit, because you can see sometimes the pauses are a little bit intense. I've got one of the settings for the bulbs pretty low, and I might just step that up just a little bit so it doesn't look quite so stark. But I don't know, sometimes when you look at the flicker candle, it actually flickers out to blank as well, so I may not need to do that. But anyway, that'll be an aesthetic thing, and I can work on that later. And that gives you a little sense of their brightness. They look much brighter head on. These are diffused 5mm RGB bulbs. Then what I wanted to do was create a pulsing, glowing sort of greenish blue. So you can see that pulsing going on there, and this gives you a little idea of what the color looks like. There we go. I thought that might be nice, so you could have something very eerie in there, you know, depending on what kind of forces you might want to be, you know, occupying the entrance. So that might give something kind of, you know, dark and sinister to it. But that color can be changed, and I did add a third effect, which is basically a little bit of a flip of the other one. Now this is a blue tinted with green, which kind of gives a sienna effect. Now you'll notice it's flashing. That's actually a code error. I have to go in and fix that. I'm pushing the brightness too far, and it's wrapping around back to off, basically. So as it charges up, it goes too far and then starts to power back down after it goes through that loop. Anyway, that's easy to fix. I can fix that. And I've spent so much time on it today, I was like, I better shoot a video. So those are the three effects, and the customer can toggle through those with this switch, which will be installed on the outside of the cliff. One thing about the switches, though, is they do what's known in the sort of circuitry world here as it bounces. So sometimes when you push it, you might actually skip an effect. But I am not going to work on putting a debouncer in the code at this point. For those of you who understand that, that's for you. For those of you who don't understand it, don't worry. But, you know, it basically, I don't mind, you know, and I don't think the customer will mind if he skips an effect. If he just has to toggle back through, it's only 3. You can get back to it pretty easily. So that is going to go in the entrance, and I'm planning at this point of having 3 lights on each side. Just to make sure it's bright enough. I have a feeling that's probably going to be too much, but I can always program the intensity of the lights down if I need to, so that's not a big deal at all. And the lights are cheap. For those of you who are wondering, you know, these are pretty inexpensive. So the second effect. So the second effect will be in the lava. Now this posed a unique challenge in that I wanted to have, so let's say I've got the lava over the lights, and I want to have it painted with reds and yellows and some black areas where it's cooled off. My idea was to have the color coming through the clear plastic painted, and then pulse that color, but vary the color that's coming through the lava in a way that's sort of like, you know, that's my lava sound. So, unfortunately, at this point, I've run out of inputs, or I should say outputs, on the board, as they're restricted between digital and analog and blah, blah, blah. For those of you who don't know, don't worry about that. But I can only have, you know, 2 sets of lights, and to run 2 bulbs at a different, you know, on a different code, basically, I would need another set of outputs. Now, there are ways, I know there are ways, that I could add a shift register chip or some other things to be able to have multiple inputs and control it in a different way. I have spent so much brain power, and getting to this point, I am not taking on more of that. So this is going to be fine for this project, and down the road, when I'm ready to swallow some more C++, I will go down that road and some new components. But I think for now, this is going to be fine. So what I've done is I've taken one of the bulbs, wired it up normally, and I've taken the other bulb, and I've actually doubled the leads to one of its leads, so that it will produce an alternate color, but be restricted in the colors that it can show. Oh, wrong switch. Stop. Go off. There we go. So what I've done is I have made one that pulses. Now this has a much longer cycle because I figured the lava, I don't want it to change too fast. But you can see it went from yellow to red, and then it is going to eventually, takes a little second there to change. There we go. And it's going to go to white. So you can see that this one is running a slightly different color. It matches it in white, but it does not have what is it? Oh, yeah, so you can see it doesn't have the yellow effect. And what I'm hoping is that by staggering these underneath the, oh, that's it. It doesn't have the red. That's right. That's what it doesn't have. In any case, by staggering these under the lava flow, right, with say several bulbs scattered about, then even though they're cycling on the same timer basically, but it will still have a different color change, going through the lava over time. So that's the thought on that. I figure I can probably get away with 4 or 5 bulbs spread throughout, and that will give me, oh, that's probably a little short there because it's just stuck in the board with a little piece of wire, but that should give me some visual variation through the lava effect, and I think that will look pretty cool, actually. So that leads to the next section, which is, what the heck am I going to do about this mysterious lava that I keep talking about? So my idea was to make a mold of the shape of the lava that I wanted, then cast it in a clear plastic, and then conform that to the land. I'll have a trough to hide the lights in, and then this will overlay that trough. Why are we not focusing on my hand? Okay. And so in order to do that, I needed a material that I could flex. Now, I wasn't really sure. I wanted to get some new plastics to try them out and compare them to the things that I know. I know clear coat, which is also very similar to Envirotex. A lot of people ask me about this material. This is typically what I use for my water effects. It's very scratch resistant and it's very hard. And my second material that I tried was crystal resin. Oh, I can't remember the company's name, but this is the, it's got craft in the title. But this is a sort of, Michaels carries this. It's a pretty common clear casting resin used for, like encapsulating, a flower in a paperweight, something like that. So I wanted to try that material out. And the same company also makes a product they call Easy Cast Epoxy. So I figured this might actually be pretty similar to clear coat, but I figured I'd give it a try, as clear coat is technically an epoxy. It's a 2-part, epoxy resin. The crystal resin actually has a catalyst that's added to the plastic, so it's not, technically an epoxy where it's sort of like equal parts, although I don't know the definitions, it probably qualifies. But anyway, it's a bit different in how you work with it. So what I did is I cast these up, and then I tried to bend them. And the clear coat is, this is like, oh, look at that. I can bend it a little bit, but it is pretty hard to bend. Now, if I cast it a little thinner than this, I might be able to get it to yield. But, of course, I want some texture, and so I'm probably not going to be working with anything thinner than this, and it might even be a little bit thicker. So the clear coat was not encouraging, and the crystal resin was also pretty stiff. In fact, that is stiffer than the clear coat. The other downside about using the crystal resin is that it is tough to get a good cure, especially for small amounts, as you have to estimate, how much of the catalyst to add, and this in fact still has a little tackiness to it. Now that would go away once I paint over it, so I wouldn't be too worried about that, but my first pour was actually very tacky, so you really have to pay attention to that. Then what I did, just to test, is I thought if I heat these up with my heat gun, that then I might be able to bend it like I do with styrene or something like that, and then once it cools, I would have the new shape. As soon as I heated it up, it bent really easy, and then it fractured. So it doesn't receive, heating very well, and stays pretty much, even though I could bend it slightly, it would actually return to its original shape. I tried that with the crystal resin. That didn't work. That's why this piece is so small. So I was left with the Easy Cast Epoxy out of the 3, and the Easy Cast Epoxy is actually, look at that, it's pretty soft. I think I can tack that down to a surface, super glue it down, and it should stay in place. It does have, pretty good memory to return to shape, but it's not exerting a lot of force to do it. However, I do have to be careful in how much I flex it. You can see here that I am beginning to split it. So there's a limit to how much yield it has, and that might be something I have to consider when I sculpt the lava. But at the moment, I feel pretty good about this material. It's not optimum but I think it's going to get the job done, and certainly it's better than these two. And I really want to have some texture in the lava that I can control rather than using, well, I mean, if it's going to be transparent, I can't use like expanding foam or that sort of idea. I just had somebody recommend, having maybe a thin sheet of plastic that can ripple with like a little fan underneath to give it some movement. I'll think about that. That might be an option, but at this time, I'm kind of looking for a nice detailed lava flow. And when I get closer to that, I'll show you some of the pictures that I've been looking at. So right now, the EasyCast epoxy is looking like the winner, and once I get a small mold of the lava done, I'll cast it up, and we can take a look at that and see how that goes. The last thing maybe to take a look at is what would that look like coming through. So let's turn back on the, I got to turn the battery on. There we go. That helps. Power, electricity, go figure. So give you a sense, right? That's coming through pretty nice and strong. I feel pretty good about that. Now, the only thing I might have a problem with is needing to put in a diffuser to ensure that the lights don't look quite so point oriented. So I'll give that some thought. Of course, they look, from the side, it's a little bit more diffuse, but of course it doesn't put out as much light. So what I'm going to probably need to do is do a test paint with, I want to use some transparent paints to paint the lava, and I suppose I could just test paint this and get a sense of that. And then see how the light is coming through the paint, and then I'll be able to judge how much diffusion I'm going to need to make sure that it doesn't look like there's a light bulb under the lava, but that the major, a large area of it is lit up. But I'm really pretty excited about that, and I think with by painting an area, let's say the door has yellow and the wall section here is red and this is black, right? When a yellow light comes through, the yellow should look nice and strong, the red will look kind of orange, but when it flips like this, right, then the red will look red and the yellow will look orange, and then when it flips again to white, then we'll see each of their colors true and nice and bright. So that's the thought, that's the thinking going on in my brain at the moment. So there's a few steps to go on that, but the major hurdle, which is actually getting this done, is over, because quite frankly, managing materials I feel okay with. I mean, it doesn't mean I have the solution yet, and it's going to take some more work, but that's not a problem for me. I know materials, I can at least troubleshoot that, but this was coating, and that I've never done before, and that was a real bear. So biggest problem over. Now we move on to the smaller problems. So that gives you an idea of what I've been up to. It has been a long, hard road, fueled by an obsessive compulsion to master it that has probably taken me easily in excess of 100 hours of my personal time to get this under my belt. So I don't recommend the casual person trying to jump into this level of lighting. There are some new kits that just came out in a Kickstarter where they come with a resistor, they come with a little plug, you stick them in, they light up, you stick them in your aircraft or your terrain or whatever. But I really wanted to get this under my belt so that I could bring this kind of improved, controllable lighting to future projects down the road. So even though I've invested a tremendous amount of time up front, I think it's going to pay good dividends down the road. The other thing that was intended for this project was the moving portcullis, the sliding gate bars, which I showed in a previous video, a prototype sort of mock-up. Unless the customer is really passionate about it, I'm going to set that aside and not include it in this project. I've done a lot of R&D to get to this point, and it is causing some things to back up, and I think I'd like to set that aside, and perhaps next year, another project, something that needs moving, I'll be able to figure out a small aspect and tackle that as its own unique project rather than adding it on top of this sort of crazy lighting journey I've been on. So that's the plan at this point, and I'll update you, of course, depending on what the customer has to say. And lastly, just as a sort of odd thing that has been happening, it is crazy, as I mentioned before, crazy hot, crazy humid. Right now in the basement, in the shop, in the studio, it is running about 80 degrees and about 70% humidity. That's warm and humid for this area, for downstairs. And I was actually casting the new hills. Get ready for those. I really like them. But they were getting all these bubbles in the surface that I've never seen before. Like, never seen before. And I've cast a lot of plastic. And I started doing test casts, and is it the talcum powder's got moisture in it maybe, because urethanes don't like moisture, and maybe it's, not mixed right, or maybe it's old urethane, maybe as I open up a new bottle, it's doing it too. And then I went to the website. I use Smooth-On's products for my casting, smoothon.com, and they have an FAQ there where you can kind of, common problems that people have, bubbles in casts. And what they said there is that typically you need to cast it under 60% humidity in order to get bubble-free cast. The urethane actually absorbs moisture from the air, and once it does that, it reacts and it actually begins to get frothy. If it's really moist, it will foam up, in fact. So that made me realize that was probably my problem. So I had to build a box and then put lights over the box, heat it to about 100 degrees inside the box, which dried out the box. I had my little humidity meter in there, would drop it down to about 30%. Then I could cast in the box. I have never, in my past, what have I been doing this for, like 5, 6 years? I've never had to do that before. So the weather is a little wonky, and if I look hot right now, it's because it's a baker in Massachusetts lately. So it rained all of June, and now it's a heat wave. It's wet. So anyway, that's just an FYI. If you do any casting, check your humidity levels. They might be giving you trouble. It's a long one today. It's a long video, but there's a lot to catch up on. I haven't talked to you in a while, so as always, thank you for joining me, and stay tuned to the channel. I have a lot of questions in the question and answer episodes, and I'm not going to be able to get them all done in the next episode, which is great because there'll be some for the next one, but I'm going to be shooting a Q&A right after I get this edited, and so keep your eye out for that. I'm sure there'll be lots of varied and interesting questions in that episode. So stay tuned, and I'll be back soon with another video.